This computer. All right, welcome to yet another episode of the Bit Obscene podcast. Today, I am joined by two special guests. We have a new special guest. We have Microsoft Certified Master Sean Gallardy in a completely unofficial capacity. We have our usual temporary co-host, Joe Obbish.
Wait,
Uh, all,
temporary?
all,
Do
yeah,
you have some kind of plans to get rid of me? Wait,
I,
am I being replaced
you,
by the Microsoft Certified Master?
Land
Is
on
that
the
what's
left.
happening?
you are being
Land on
replaced
the
like
left.
AI, like everyone else.
Okay, all right. I can live with that.
Yeah, I'm migrating my best friend to the cloud, and you're gone. You're out of here. But also in an unofficial capacity, I am going to be your completely unbiased moderator, Eric Darling. I have absolutely no certifications or skills to speak of, so I'm just here to make sure everyone doesn't curse and keeps their clothes on. Anyway, Joe, why don't you start by stating your position on the current state of the cloud? And it doesn't have to be any specific cloud, it can just be the cloud in general. But if you want to name names, I'm not going to stop you.
So, do you know why they call it the cloud?
I do not know why they call it the cloud.
It's because shit rains down on you.
I'm already failing as a moderator. Where is my beep button?
So I don't have any certifications either, but I would state my opening position as I've been a cloud hater since uh, about 9 years. So I've been hating on the cloud for 9 years, and I'm mostly focused on the Microsoft Azure cloud platform.
Would you consider yourself an OG cloud hater, or are you more of a more new to the cloud hating game than
I
than
mean,
than,
I,
than
s-
most
I
others?
started in 2016. I'm sure
Okay,
there are people who've been hating it for longer than me, but I
sure.
feel like 9 years is a pretty respectable
It's a
number.
pretty respectable number. Almost your 10-year anniversary of hating the cloud.
Almost
Do you,
10, yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. Are you a proud cloud hater, or are you just, sort of a run of the mill day to day cloud hater?
I think I'm run of the mill because like if there are other things to talk about, I'd prefer to talk about those things with the exception of this very important roundtable discussion,
Okay.
of
All
course.
right. Great. All right. Well, good opening salvo there. Sean, what is your position on the cloud?
Uh,
Any cloud will
so
do.
yeah, I'm more of a moderate on that. It's I think there's good use cases for various things. Not if we in just the vein of databases, it's hit or miss. I still think there's some good use cases. Overall, though, I think there's better use cases for people. You know, but
What use
overall,
cases what use cases sound good for the cloud? What would you put in the cloud and what would you take out of the cloud?
I think there's some really good use cases for people doing backups who otherwise wouldn't have backups, right? Like
Sure. So like if
your
someone wrote a piece of software and they wanted to back it up so they didn't lose it, and maybe like if anything terrible befell their laptop, they wouldn't
yeah,
just
like
have be completely out of luck.
or accidentally deleted the GitHub repo. Yeah, like that.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
right. Correct,
One like
correct.
that should
Yep,
probably
yep. That would be good. Yeah.
but
Hmm.
to I I also wanted to go with I was told in about 2009 I was working at a undisclosed location and we had a TAM from Microsoft come in and I was a DBA at the time and tell me that, I only had 2 or 3 more years left as a DBA because everything was going to start going to the cloud. Won't need DBAs anymore. Everything's going to be auto everything. The cloud's going to have everything. Nothing's needed.
Hmm.
You're everything. So fast forward, what is this? Almost 18 years. And, here we are with the same issues. In fact, I would argue, at least for databases, more issues being in the cloud. Uh, so I would say I'm not necessarily an OG hater. I've graduated into been here long enough that all that is old is new again. And
Sure.
the same cycle.
Sure.
So
So, I mean, I think the original death of the DBA was that I mean, at least like the first extinction that I survived was virtualization, right? Because virtualization, that was supposed to wipe out like DBA is no longer necessary. Everything is in your own personal cloud on-prem.
Learn
You don't have
VMware.
to, yeah,
There'll be no more DBA.
don't have to worry about anything. Just do snapshot
Broadcom.
backups. Yeah, all that great stuff. And then, of course, the cloud was the second, I think, big extinction event for DBAs. And now we have well, I think AI is more of a general extinction event, not just DBAs, but they're certainly part of the fauna that seems to be getting scorched off the earth.
I mean, it got the dinosaurs, so.
It sure did. It sure did. You don't see too many of those around anymore.
Mm-mm.
It's a shame.
They say the same thing in Oracle, or at least at the one time I went to Open World, which I would describe as a combination of amusement park slash prison camp. It wasn't very fun,
Is that where you
but
got that shirt?
yes, it's
It's interactive
I've been wearing
bananas
these
to
shirts
ride.
ever since to try to avoid a repeat of what happened in Open World. But the really rich guy in charge of Oracle was giving some keynote, and I was gonna watch the keynote in person, but they wanted to search my bags because I guess everyone hates them,
Mm.
and I declined the search, so I didn't get to watch in person.
What was in
But
your bag?
he said that that's under NDA. He said that
Yeah, papers,
DBA
please.
was going away. That was in like 2017, and I figured, well, if he's right, there's no reason to pay attention to him. If he's wrong, there's also no reason to pay attention to him. So I just like stopped paying attention.
There was no way for Larry to win that, was there?
Yeah, I mean,
He started with the bad opening statement, I
yeah, I
suppose.
But
mean,
don't you feel bad? Now he did, because of you, he couldn't get another yacht.
Mm. He had to go buy an island. Boats are
Yes.
dried up. How's he going to get to the island? We don't know. We don't
Well,
know.
if you got a boat, you got to get a boat guy. Everybody
It's
knows
true.
that.
Yeah. I mean, catamaran captains are very, very difficult to come by these days.
I've watched Below Decks.
So I guess let's go back to a Sean statement here because he
well,
said,
wait, don't you want to state your opening position, or did you
I'm,
do it
I am a,
just?
I am a completely unbiased moderator. I don't I
Oh,
don't
right,
I don't
of
have an
course.
opening
Okay,
position. My job is to explore your positions.
okay. Ooh.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
So we're gonna do a lot of exploring of positions in today's
Okay.
today's bit obscene podcast. Sean, you said at some point that there are things that are not so good in the cloud. What are some of your least favorite things to see in the cloud? What sort of workloads do not do well in the old cloudy space?
production databases.
Production databases, all right.
No,
That's fair.
I mean, that's a little bit of a thing, but there are times when when it's fine. But when you move your database into the cloud, especially production, right? It's not oh, let's move this, let's do this. You're either 100% entirely in and you move all your applications and all your web and all your content delivery and everything goes to the cloud, or you're just going to have a terrible time. And then once you're there, it's kind of no different, as you don't have control over everything. And that's supposed to be the allure, right? Unless you do a VM, but then that's not really the cloud. That's just a VM in a data center somewhere, which is the same thing as people did with VMware. So, or
Essentially.
hype virtualization in general.
No one runs
like-
Hyper-V in production, Sean. Come on. Don't start. They might start now, but come on. Come on.
I mean,
Unserious.
Broadcom did
Yeah.
Hyper-V a favor.
They sure did.
But it's like, oh, we have this thing, and oh, well, our latency is really high. Oh, yeah, that's because you're going from Los Angeles to some cloud provider through 17 levels of networking through 150 different ISPs and 17 satellites. Like,
Yep.
yeah, you're going to be latent. I don't know it. Well, it was faster when we were, well, yeah. And then the thing is, well, now you got to put all your stuff up there. So then it becomes not oh, we'll do this and it'll be great. We'll get some HA. We don't have to run a bunch of this stuff. We'll get backups and some of the other things to, well, now we have to change our entire architecture. Oh, they don't have a service for this. It's, oh, we have to change how we do this now. Oh, we got to re-architect this. It just becomes a whole thing. And maybe a re-architecture is needed or maybe a refactoring is great, but
Yeah,
And it-
a lot of people got sold on this like a very easy lift and shift, and
Mhm.
especially for legacy applications with a lot of legacy dependencies, a lift and shift is
Yes.
just not not really a
Yeah, the
how
lift and shift and the high performance.
yeah.
I do see there are some high performing, we'll just be generic and call them SKUs out there from every cloud provider. How much performance you actually get from them, eh. And that's for the less managed things. And then you get to the more managed things, and it becomes much less performance.
That is something that I have found as well. So, you know, like I think like almost this it's weird because a lot of people did go from like physical to virtual, and there was obviously like the abstraction tax on that,
Mhm.
but like it was very weird for me to see people go from virtual to the cloud and then there be some additional abstraction tax on top of that. So it's like you like I remember like doing like, oh, we're gonna do a physical to virtual conversion. We have to forecast hardware. Like,
Yep.
like in the past, there's been like, I don't know, let's just say like somewhere between 10 and 30% hit on performance and from various hardware resources. We have to account for that. Then like they were like, okay, we'll go to the cloud. We're already virtualized, so what's the difference going to be? And then it was just like, wait a minute, like we got screwed again. Like no, we need so many more cores now. What is happening?
Yeah, and it's again, when I say cloud, I'm not talking about any infrastructure
In
services, so not
particular,
a VM. It'd be all managed stuff. So anything pat would be
yeah,
colloquially known as PaaS.
yeah, platform as a service for those uninitiated going and watching. Joe is going to
Oh,
share his screen and show us some interesting things now. This
Sean
looks like the
triggered me so
Microsoft
hard
Azure
there.
portal.
I am so triggered right now.
Are you?
Okay.
All
I am
right.
so triggered. So first of all, Sean, the standard series Gen 5 logical CPU is great for most relational work database servers.
Yeah.
Because like when you do like in some like custom
I
2.3
mean,
gigahertz Intel from like 7 years ago, I think what a great CPU for my database workload.
I mean, it
like
was
great for,
7 years
yeah, maybe
ago.
it was. I mean, I'm sure it's great for like power efficiency. But like I
Broadwell's
mean, I
now.
don't know, like maybe we're gonna be like donating our extra CPU cycles in the cloud to be like carbon neutral or something. But like I don't care about the power efficiency of the data center. I have this whole long rant where like, why do we use databases? We use databases because they're supposed to make things easier, right? It's supposed to make development easier. You don't want your developers creating all database from scratch, right? And like for a while, like
That doesn't seem to stop them a lot of the time.
yeah, but like before a while, like things actually were getting easier, right? Like you remember back in the bad old days of 5400 RPM hard drives and
Yeah.
like page splits were super important and
Yeah.
everyone said index fragmentation is super important.
Hmm.
And then we like got better storage, we got better hardware, like things got easier for a while, right? And now we've somehow made things less easy for our production workloads. And I think that computers and software should serve us, and we should not be the servants of software. And for the cloud, it really feels like sometimes you are a servant of, these CPUs that were great 7 years ago and these storage latencies, which are unreasonable.
They've
But see,
backtracked
Joe,
quite a bit.
it's solved by just paying more, right? If you just pay more, it gets better,
Yeah.
right? The more it's like the more you know, except the more you pay.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. Also, those CPUs, it's entirely possible that they have not been patched with various Spectre and Meltdown mitigations, and they might still be pretty good.
Oh,
Because
I
those
look into
those those
that. Okay.
patches nerfed a lot of stuff, but just throwing it out there.
And one thing I'm curious about is like there isn't anything inherent to Azure SQL Database which requires them to run on old crappy CPUs. right?
Well,
Because
that's what they
like,
could get off eBay. It's
well, I mean, like, I do have to wonder if the lack of diversity and like super high spec CPUs is kind of our fault. Like maybe there's no demand. Like I see, I don't know a lot about it, but I see Amazon trying to compete on like performance. Like, oh, hey, you want to run your database in the cloud? Like, here's a 4.5 gigahertz CPU from last year with 32 gigs of memory per core or something, right? Whereas I mean, I've never seen an Azure SQL database offering that's like anywhere even close to that. Like, oh, like we'll like you want more memory? Okay, we'll give you 8 gigabytes per core, and that's like our supersize option. That's like all we got. Like,
I
I
think
don't
there
know,
are some
like
that are like 13 gigs per core, but like that
right.
knob doesn't turn well for me,
Yeah.
especially with a lot of the workloads I deal with. Because like, like a lot of this stuff, like and granted there is some like far down the road wisdom that as you remove IO bottlenecks by like adding memory, you could theoretically add CPU bottlenecks because now everything is just banging CPUs up 100% all the time. But like for the most part, like most of the workloads that I deal with could survive very easily running at between like 60-70% CPU with far fewer cores, but they just need way more memory because the amount of data that they're dealing with is like just not this does not compact well into what you get available through the usual like web portal knobs for adding memory to these instances. And like there have been some stabs at improving that with like the constrained CPUs and with the memory optimized stuff. The problem that I run into is that like aside from them not being available across all regions a lot of the time is also that like the cloud providers, and I'm saying this generally, they know what you're using them for. Right? They're like that's for a database. That's for your expensive thing.
Mhm.
Of course we're going to charge you more for it. Like come on. Like you're not putting like your app servers on that. Like you don't need like 768 gigs of memory for your app servers. We know what you're doing with that. That's where you're putting the $7,000 a core thing.
Yeah, there's definitely a lack of flexibility there, right? And it makes sense if you think of it from a cloud provider's perspective of if we let people choose, and even if you charge them for what they did, right? This is how much per gig of memory, this is how much per core, whatever. Even if you let customers choose, that would be a nightmare because at the end of the day, you still have a set of computers with a set of specs. And if you don't have those at exactly 100% on memory and CPU usage, you're losing money,
Yeah.
right? So, from the cloud provider's perspective, whether it be Google, Amazon, Microsoft, whomever, you need to get that packed in. You need that kind of oversubscription almost model
Yeah.
in order to just make it work.
Yeah.
And as to Joe brought up the 7-year-old, 8-year-old CPUs. I mean, yeah, you're going to put your low end workloads on that, right? You're going to say, oh, you want your 1/4 of a virtual core for free for 400 hours a month or something. Here you go. We'll let you do that as a way to get in, but it's also going to run on that low end hardware that you've already over the 5 years have, amortized out, and you're just trying to get every last dollar that you can from it, which I don't blame them, but at the same time yeah, I wouldn't put a actual production workload on something like that.
No, but
Well,
like,
but
but cloud
that's what the
providers,
offering is for Azure. Like that is the production CPU for
What
Azure. Like for other
when
cloud
that's the
providers, it might be different.
And that's kind of the problem, though, right, Joe? Is that we're sitting here talking about CPUs, Broadwell, Skylake, and the whole point of the cloud was it was supposed to abstract you, right? You're not supposed to care about those things.
you're not
You're
supposed to
not
know.
supposed to. You're not supposed to even know about them, right? Maintenance, that's
Yeah.
done for you. You shouldn't even know. Like all these things that we've gone to. This is one of my issues. Is oh well, the cloud's going to be easier. We're abstracted from all this stuff, and then what do we get? Well, we're on a when you were showing the screenshot, Joe. Well, we're on a Gen 5. Well, what about, is there a Gen 6? Did we get on a Gen 4? What about a Gen 68,000 million? Why are we need to be pinned to a Gen 12 because we've noticed a performance regression in Gen 5. none of that should be a thing, in my opinion. If we're going to cloud, like none of that should be a thing on a PaaS environment.
Well, but you can have different offerings. Like, as you said, if you spend enough money, you'll get better performance. I mean, maybe it's hidden in some like super elite, like diamond platinum level customers only. And I don't even have access to the portal because it would cost more than Eric's favorite booze. But like,
We call that the Walmart Club.
um, yeah, like maybe that exists I don't know about, but I've never seen on Azure like, oh, you want 4.5 gigahertz CPUs, you can get them. They'll just cost you a lot of money. Like as far as I know, that's just not available. Like you can get a bit more memory, you can get faster disks. I think they have some premium CPU that they say is better, but it's still not like the best on the market.
No, but a lot of this is the fault of cloud providers, right?
Yes.
Because what they did was they marketed it as like cheaper, faster, more secure, more reliable, all these things, right? There were all these promises made by what the cloud was going to give people. And then people got there and they weren't really getting all of those promises met. And then like people wanted to know what was underneath the cloud because like they were like, wait a minute, like we're not seeing the performance. What's in there? Like what's under this? And so like they had to start like putting these like various things out there. I do think that there would be like I understand why like CPU and memory are not separate knobs that anyone can turn at any time to allocate more or turn down like the allocations. But what always bothered me is that like there weren't like just like more, especially in the database space, there weren't more sane offerings, especially for like known product limitations. Like if you take SQL Server Standard Edition, right? Like there's obviously limits on CPUs. They change from year to year, and there's obviously limits on memory that have changed at least once, and perhaps there's another change coming with SQL Server 2025. You don't have to blink once or twice to confirm that, but like there was almost no normal sized box for standard edition that was like, hey, here's like 8 to 16 cores with like 196 gigs of memory. It was always like, well, you can have 8 or 16 cores, but then you have like 128 gigs of memory that you can't touch. And you're like, I don't need like just give me a glove that fits, man. Give me a glove that fits. And then like managed instance with like their cap on memory is like 480 gigs, I think, for a lot of them. And you're I don't need 128 cores and 480 gigs of memory. I need like maybe 32 cores and like 2 terabytes of memory or a terabyte and a half of memory. Like this is a database. You know what you're dealing with. We need the database. We need the memory. And like trying to add like incrementally faster storage offerings behind the scenes just doesn't cut it for those things.
Either you guys know why those memory options aren't really available? Like is it just overall industry capacity? Because in terms of memory, right? Like you buy it once, it's pretty low power uses, especially compared to your CPU. There isn't any licensing for anyone on memory at any point. Like if
Not
anything,
directly, but indirectly.
There's yeah, the biggest. So to answer your question, Joe, kind of the biggest items there are going to be the density that you pack it to, and then what SKUs you want to sell it to, right? Like if you're trying to really maximize out your stuff, there's a per core kind of throughput that you can get with memory. So if you can do, depending on what your bandwidth is for those kind of DIMMs that are in there, uh, you don't want to put, if your per core bandwidth is say 80 gigabytes a second, you don't necessarily want to put in so much memory that pretty much can't go through it. So if you're giving out, you're packing that with whatever CPU you're getting wholesale. Uh, you don't, you basically, you want it to be matched pretty well, right? You don't want it to be like Eric was saying, you don't want a server that has 4 cores and 2 terabytes of memory, because then you're going to run out of cores before you satisfy the memory. And you don't want a server that has 1,000 cores and 64 gigs of memory, because you're not going to get a whole lot done. So for databases, for other
Yeah.
things, yes, but for database.
Yeah, it just seems like there was never a good alignment on cloud hardware, specifically for databases. Like that's the thing that's always bothered me the most is like even like various platform as a service offerings, like no one got the numbers kind of right on that. And it always baffled me a bit that why are these like these insane jumps in CPUs with these like minimalist jumps in memory? And you're like, I just never understood like even from like a server density perspective, like 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 if your host VM has like let's say 256 cores in it, like like why not limit the CPUs and bump up the memory and like let people sort of like be more dense in those spaces. It was always odd to me.
I
I
have a
mean, you're
mental
lucky that
model which might not be correct, which is cloud provider buys like 100,000 servers, they're all the same, and then some set of servers, well, we're going to use these for the database workloads. And there isn't necessarily as much like care and careful attention that we might want because we're database people in terms of, oh, well, this subset, these specs are going to be totally different. I don't know if that's true. That's just
No, I think
like a
that's
guess
that's
I
that's
have.
probably accurate. But then you have cloud providers that now have like bare metal offerings, and you're like, we've just come
full
it's just come full
circle.
circle. Like why did we do this in the first place? It's
I mean, I
all
get it makes it honestly back to my original kind of statement of it does make sense in some situations. There was a company that I was helping, and the CIO basically said, I'm tired of running data centers. I'm tired of paying multiple ISPs and dealing with all this stuff.
mhm.
I'm happy to pay more and put it in the cloud and not have to deal with this.
Yeah, when there's an
Okay,
outage, it's not everyone that you like, not your employees' hair on fire, weary.
exactly.
It's there's definitely some wisdom in the stuff that you can like the worries you can offload to the cloud. But
Then they get upset. Well, what's the last ETA? What's the status
yep,
update? What do
yep,
you mean it's not DNS? What do you
yep,
mean it's DNS?
yeah. Like you got to be real careful with those SLAs on the cloud provider stuff too,
Real
because
careful.
because
Gotta
you
read
know
that fine print.
yeah, because like you're not an important face to them, like. Like they
Well,
have big customers who are important faces. Like you with your like I don't know what like maybe like 100 VMs. Like they're gonna look at you and be like, yeah, okay, we'll get to you. Don't worry. Like fine. You're like yes, we take a number. Like we'll get there. You get it's like deli counter rules with some of this
I,
stuff.
I have a question for Joe
Oh
since he
boy,
was one of the
Oh,
the OG.
wait. The MCM is asking me a question.
this
It's
this is a
it's not how this works,
this is
man.
quite a day.
Oh,
All right, go
gotta
ahead,
give
hit me.
the viewers what they want.
Okay,
So,
I'm ready.
so are there any workloads that you believe are actually good for the cloud?
Yeah, like anything that's a non-database workload because it's not my problem. And it's not great for the cloud. Um, well, like I wouldn't go so far as to say that all database workloads shouldn't be in the cloud because like I'm naturally drawn towards like super intense workloads, like where I'm going to push the limits of SQL Server hardware. Like that's the kind of thing that I like to work on and I like to think about. Like there definitely are a lot of pretty bog standard workloads out there, and they might do just fine on cloud hardware. Or at the very least, they're there today and they haven't gone out of business yet. So they're getting by somehow. Um, I think your earlier point was pretty good in that, because I remember hearing the same thing years ago where like we were thinking about the cloud and we wanted information about the hardware with respect to SQL servers, and the response from Microsoft was, "Oh, well, why are you even asking that? Like, we're abstracting it. Like, you don't have to worry about that." So, like if you go in with that position of like, I want the best possible hardware, and it's just some like, like within the big amorphous cloud, I want the densest, like sweetest, most fluffy part of the cloud, all for me, right? That doesn't really
Yeah, I want the part where the
make a lot of
rainbows are.
sense. Yes, exactly.
No, but like
Sounds
so
good.
like for cloud workloads, so like I think we can all generally agree that super high end, super like like workloads with very high performance requirements are maybe not a great fit for platform as a service. You when you have enough granular control with like a VM host in the or like a VM in the cloud, you can probably do some better work there. But for like, someone starting out an application, if you think about like the initial spend that they might have to make on infrastructure, people to manage that infrastructure, people to deal with all that
Mhm.
stuff, like that could be a really big hurdle for them to jump. But if someone like is just starting out an application, they can get, lower end hardware. Performance is probably not like if they overspec some like a startup application, like they can get away with like, maybe the extra like 500 to $1,000 a month on some slightly bigger hardware to compensate for stuff. Not have to worry about like any initial purchasing, not have to worry about investing in people to manage it, not have to worry about all the stuff that goes into that. They can focus on having an app, developing it, and making it accessible, right? Getting some money in the door. Then from there, you get into stuff. But like, I think the general problems that we've dealt with and the problems that we see probably like more day to day is with like, legacy stuff that got pushed into the cloud without really any forethought or investigation. Like higher end workloads that, like maybe they started there and they like outgrew whatever they were on, or maybe someone just again tried to lift and shift it there. And no one was prepared for all of the things that come along with moving an application to a wholesale new environment. I've seen some people, like get like, oh, we started moving all our application servers to the cloud, and the latency between the application servers and the database server killed us. So we had to hustle to get the database in there, and like the latency's gone, but like performance just completely fell apart because we didn't do a good job with the migration. So there's a lot of stuff that like, that comes along with the move to the cloud that like just doesn't go well for people. And like I think those are the problems that we see. And I think that's where a lot of like, the sort of
But I
like
think
the cloud hating comes from.
I think you hit the nail on the head though. In that's the quintessential perfect use case in my
Yeah.
opinion, and what you said of let's say you're an app developer, right? You write in whatever language you write in, and
Crayons.
say, hey, I need a database. PowerShell. That's absolutely what Eric writes in. It's like I need a database, right? I need somewhere to put this stuff, and I need a web server, and I need this. I mean, it only makes sense, right? You do a couple clicks,
Yep.
you got a web server, you got a connection string to a database, like you're ready to go,
Yep.
right? You like you said, you didn't have to deal with. You might not know. You don't want to spend your time setting up infrastructure and setting up and doing all this stuff when
Active
you could just
Directory.
get it. Yeah, exactly, and be working. You could be working on your code, like you said, getting your product out the
Yep.
door so much faster, so much easier. And then if you need to scale up, great. If you need to spend a little bit more money, great. And then if you need to iterate on that, also great. I think that's the perfect use case,
Yeah. If you need to
honestly.
hire a consultant to help you save money in the cloud, great.
But I also agree that, yeah, the legacy was a problem. I even think a lot of the new stuff is a problem, even with the quintessential best use case. And that's just because it's, it becomes, and I know this isn't a talk about AI, but it becomes the same issue I see with AI where, well, it's someone else's problem. I don't actually need to understand what I'm doing or know how anything works. I just know click, it goes, right? Bigger number better, more clicks better, everything's fine. So then when there is a problem or when things don't scale right or when stuff happens, it's, oh my God, well, I don't know. Well, this and this and this. And I think that also leads to a lot of quote, bad cloud experiences as well. And it's because at some point when you make things so easy, which is good, that you remove a lot of barrier to entry,
Mhm.
right? So friction is gone. That's a good thing. But then people get lazy, people don't care, especially in today's environment
Yep.
where no one wants to be an expert, no one wants to understand how things work or how it goes. They just want to click on the next thing and go and click on the next thing and go. And that's fine until something breaks.
Yep.
And so I think that's the downfall of that scenario.
Yeah, like you get people who are fine continuing to rack up the technical debt without ever paying off any of the interest on it. That's what I see quite a bit. The other thing would be like people just picking the wrong target for their cloud migration. That's another big thing where they just weren't prepared for the limitations and restrictions that or the things that they're not allowed to touch in these various places. Probably one of the most common ones I see are people who are like, we moved to Azure SQL Database. Now everything's slowed down. Like what happened? I'm like, well, like let's like if they still have the old server, like we take a look at that, and I'm like, oh, well, this is how you have it set up over here, and this is how it's set up over there, and they're like, well, can we change that? And I'm like, no, like biggest
Nope.
one probably like cost threshold for parallelism. It's like it was set to like they had it set to like two, like one of my clients had it set to like 200 or 250 when they were like on their on-prem because they're like that was
That's
just
high.
that I know that was what worked for them. They also had maxed up set to 2, which I thought was nuts. But then, like, they tried setting it to 8 once, and it was just like massive thread pool weights everywhere. But different story for a different day. But like, just like not being able to like change cost threshold for parallelism up to where they had it before, they had to like it was just like a lot of tuning work to get everything to a point where it was no longer just berating the server all day.
I think your earlier point was good. I'm always doing it as like I have an existing legacy application. It's not in the cloud. We're moving to the cloud, and like if you're starting out in the cloud, if you're used to
Hmm.
performance being what it is, I think it's definitely easier to adjust.
Joe, are you saying if you're cloud native? That is that what you're going for?
I mean, like I have like two prepared rants here.
Oh, let's hear them.
I'm gonna give them both.
You can take a breath between them if you need to.
Let me share my screen
Now,
here.
Yeah, go for it.
one straight conscious stream of thought.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm just
I
gonna
mean,
mute myself.
like on this subject, like I don't know, like where this marketing stuff comes from. Where
We're
like I
bringing
was saying
receipts.
before, like I don't think that developers should be spending their time tuning queries if they can. Like, you want developers to make your application better.
Yep.
But like even on Microsoft's website, they always talk about, oh, you've developed workloads. Well, you can put them on the worst hardware possible, and like you can save money. So first of all, this basic tier, 5 DTUs, IOPS, 1 to 4 IOPS per DTU. So that's between 5 to 20 IOPS. All right. I'm gonna get my virtual stopwatch out, and I'm gonna count to 5, and I'm gonna see if I can do it faster than 1 second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0.76 seconds. If I can count faster than the storage is giving me IOPS, I think we have a problem. And I don't know like why this stuff gets pushed. Like like developers do make a lot of money. It's hard to hire good ones. Like let's make them super inefficient and make them hate their jobs because that'll be better. Like I don't know like why we're pretending that like the software industry is like so cutthroat and competitive because like if you look at the profit margins for software compared to like real companies, I mean
Real
isn't that like an order of magnitude almost in some cases? Like I like it's like I don't know why I act like software companies like, oh, we're giving our developers these these 2 vCore machines and we're saving so much money. And then like there's another company and they managed to get developer machines down to like zero point 0.5 vCores. And oh, we're saving so much money. And then another company finds a Pentium 3 server in a dumpster and they throw all the workloads on that for developers. And finally, thank God the business is saved. Like this is not a real cost. So I don't know, like I don't know where this stuff comes from or like why anyone pushes it. Like it is beyond my understanding.
To
So
be
that
fair,
is rant number one.
to be a little bit fair here, though, you are on the DTU model page, and the DTU model page is the Hyper-V of cloud stuff. You got to at least go to the vCore model page before you get to like the VMware scale, like seriousness of cloud
They
services.
say it is great for developer workloads.
But that's a before you go on to rant number two, Joe. I echo that though. I've worked at places where they're paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, not counting any benefits or anything like that, right? And then they make it sound like it's the end of the world if they have to spend $1,000 on on a new laptop for you that's not 12 years old that has 64 gigs of RAM. And it's like, why, like you said, why would you want to hamstring your your highest, pay, like your main thing with essentially what $200 a year? You're okay with spending 200 grand a year, but you're not okay with spending $200 a year to make that work. I don't understand. I'm with you.
Well, there's two parts of it, right? Like, if you're so like, let's say your developers are developing on Azure SQL Database for like an application that works in Azure SQL Database. If they're developing locally on Developer Edition with like the hardware all right there, they might have a very different idea of works on my machine.
I was gonna
Then
say
like
works
then
on
like
my
when it
machine.
get then when it gets up there, they're like, wait a minute, like all this stuff that happened here isn't happening there. And there's a lot of other weird stuff happening there, and I don't understand it. So like I guess like I think like there is some correctness in making in having people develop where like on the same platform that the application lives. Like it'd almost be like if you have like we have a SQL Server application, but you're going to do all your development work in Postgres, and we'll figure it out later, right? It's like almost that level of difference between like what your like where your development stuff happens and where your workload actually runs. So like I think there is some wisdom in like having people develop there as well, but at the same time, like if you are, what's a good way to put it? Like if you don't have people who are smart enough to deal with the way that things work in a certain place, then they like you need to sort of rethink that strategy a little bit.
Well, and
All right,
to be fair, I
my
mean,
turn. Rant number
I
two.
agree with you, but I shouldn't be able to count faster than your IO operations,
Well, yeah, absolutely.
right? Like that is the model that Microsoft, for whatever reason, says is great for developer workloads. Like if you, I don't know, like if you use some like P8 or whatever is that hopefully that's a real thing, and you put your dev environment on a P8, like I think that's totally fair. I'd even go as far as to say if it's too slow for developers, it's probably too slow for your application, and you might want to rethink like what you're doing there. Um,
I like the
That's
select
also true.
star. Yeah.
No where clause, just
Uh-uh.
uh-uh.
Filter in the app. It's better.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
All
much
right, Joe.
faster.
everyone
It's all
ready
in
for
memory.
rant number two?
Bring
You
it on.
ready? And I mean, like, this is about cloud migrations again, and how sometimes you can kind of end up in a state that doesn't really make a lot of sense. And like, I mean, like to be fair, like it is our choice. Like, I'm turning it into the cloud again. Hold
Yeah,
on.
Joe is passing through a cloud.
Um, because like even on the Azure SQL database or even on the Azure platform, right? Like you have managed instances, you have like VMs in Azure if you want to do everything yourself, and you have Azure SQL Database, right? And all of those have abbreviations that I can never
Don't forget
remember.
hyperscale.
Mm.
Hyperscale is part of Azure SQL
In the
Managed
Database.
instance.
cosmos.
Come on, come on. I'm pretty sure that's true. And like, oh, but and I've seen guidance which is like, if you're doing a lift and shift, Azure SQL Database may not be right for you. Maybe you should use managed instances. Maybe you should use just basic VMs, do everything yourself. I have seen that guidance, but there are some companies out there who are gonna lift and shift to Azure SQL Database, and I feel like the most natural path doesn't make sense. So, but like we had talked about DTUs versus the Vcor model, right? Like no one knows what a DTU is. You can't fold over your licenses you already have in the DTUs. So I understand why people would want to pick vCore, especially if you're doing a lift and shift. Like that seems to make way more sense than DTU most of the time. And then the second decision is, do I want an elastic pool or not? As far as I can tell, it's the same cost. It's the same cost per core. Like I went in the pricing thing and I changed elastic versus non-elastic. It was the same cost, and like like you're probably not gonna have your databases all running at the same time, and like it's instead of trying to scope out like I have 20 databases, let me figure out the V cores for all of them. I have 20 databases, just I'll throw them in a bucket. And I think I saw Sean expressing dismay at elastic pools. I'll let him chime in after my rant's done. But like if you think about the most natural path, vCores, elastic pools, you've gone from like an on-prem instance of SQL Server to an instance of SQL Server, and you can connect to it, and you can see all the databases, but they like can't talk to each other, and you have like all of this Azure SQL database limitations, no Asian jobs, no cross database queries, blah blah blah. You have different performance. Like you kind of like it just feels like the original dream of Azure SQL Database, where you're one database on a server, and you have many friendly databases, and you all live and coexist together. Like it just feels like kind of like a poor implementation of what you're used to on-prem.
Well, yeah, but that's why managed instance came along, right? And it's like
Well, but
it's
I
two different
mean,
target
yeah,
audiences.
yeah, no, I mean
Correct.
like it is, but it's hard to find people saying good things about managed instances, right? But Sean, you wanted to say something about elastic pools. Share
Well, I
with us
did.
your wisdom.
No, it's Elastic Pools is the same issue that I saw with, as you said, people on prem where they put 600 databases on an instance, right? A lot of people out there don't necessarily, I won't say know any better, but don't necessarily have the forethought because everything's a now, just now, and then nothing's going to happen just now, and just it's a problem for later. And so you get to your two databases in Elastic Pool, and that's fine. Then you get to 10. Oh, look, we're so happy. We're saving money. We got 10 databases on our Elastic Pool. Then you get to 100, and stuff's not running right at certain times. And you're like, boy, I wonder what's going on. But of course, nobody cares enough to look into it. And then, for the company. And then you get to the whatever the max is, and you try to add that extra database, and you get an error. So then you open up a ticket. What? We're getting an error when we tried to open this. Okay, what's the error? Well, the error says you've hit the maximum, 500 databases in it. But we need this. But
Yeah,
but
we
we
need
need this thing.
501.
Yeah, we don't understand why we're getting the error. And it's like, first of all, wow, reading is apparently hard these days. And two, well, yeah, you're gonna have performance problems. It's just, and then you get the, well, we shouldn't have to scale up or scale down, or you get the opposite. Well, we're having a problem with our last book. Okay, what's going on? You know, oh, well, we did a scaling operation this hour, and then this hour we did another one, and then this hour we did another one, and then this hour we did another one, and we don't know why we're getting different performance, different times, and it's just there's good things to it. I'm obviously highlighting the bad things right now. There's a lot of good things to it. It's just the elastic pool I don't like because as Eric well knows, and as you well know, people don't know what their queries do. They don't know how much performance they actually use on things, and they just keep throwing stuff at it until it breaks, and then everyone's super surprised that it breaks.
Well,
Like,
this comes back to like what I was saying earlier. It's like everyone has fallen in love with the abstractions and that you don't have to think about it anymore. Developers fell in love with ORMs. Cool, I don't have to think
yep,
about SQL anymore. I throw it out there. Like, oh, I'm in the cloud. Every cloud provider says, hey, guess what? You don't have to think about it anymore. Like, you go ahead. Like, have fun. All right. Like we'll take care of it all for you. And then, it's coming along and all of a sudden they have to start thinking about stuff and they're like, wait a minute, I'm allergic to thinking. Nah, I can't, I don't want to do this.
basic.
It's like, I was told I wouldn't need to think about it. I was told I wouldn't need any experts. Like,
Eric, do you have
Right.
any advice for someone who maybe doesn't want to think about SQL Server and wants to offload their thinking to someone else?
yeah, I mean, I'm a very
And
offloadable
phones.
object for SQL Server
I was gonna
thinking.
say,
Yeah.
I would
And
recommend Eric.
my rates are reasonable, as everyone well knows. So don't be shy.
Speaking of reasonable, I want to talk about something unreasonable,
All right.
and that would be my final pre-prepared rant,
All right.
the great CLR scandal of 2016. So, as everyone knows, Azure SQL Database used to support CLR functions, and what there's things that aren't functions. I'm just gonna call it functions.
That's fine.
Then they realized that there are some, I think it was like a security vulnerability where in theory, if you're a super sophisticated attacker, you could use CLR code to like read shared memory and like read other customers' data. So then CLR got turned off. And if you are currently using CLR in production and as your SQL database, well, that's too bad. It's turned off, and that they said, "Oh, we think we can turn it back on in 6 months." As of 2025, it is not back on in general. Now, I have heard rumors that, if you're a super elite diamond platinum card customer, you can get your CLR functions approved. Maybe it's even Sean who occasionally approves
Yeah. Rubber
the
stamps
code for
those.
you. Um, but like a lot of us aren't super diamond platinum elite customers of
Nope.
Microsoft, and
Not in the Walmart club.
that was really the instant for me where when someone occasionally asks me, like, hey Joe, what's your opinion on cloud? I would say, well, what about like I don't want my cloud vendor to break my application without any warning. Like, I'm not saying Microsoft like should have left CLR on. I'm sure the security problems were very difficult to solve and they probably did their best. But in terms of the business reality, if you heavily relied on CLR and you weren't again the super platinum diamond whatever customer, you felt a lot of pain. You had to work around and like all of us know how difficult it can be to some CLRs. Well, if you're just splitting strings or whatever, sure, do it in T-SQL, but there's all kinds of fun things you can do which are
Like
quite
spooky
difficult to
hashes.
do in native SQL. Yes, like a spooky
I know.
hashes. And I
My,
have
my
heard, I have heard the argument. Hold on, John. I heard the argument that you shouldn't be doing like I've heard the argument that if you're making a new application, all the restrictions on Azure SQL Database are actually good because you shouldn't be doing those things anyway, which I think is fair. Like, like it's important to make the mess and taste good. So, the children like to take it. Like, you can say that. Um, and like I've had the displeasure of using service broker and transactional uh,
Replication.
replication. So, like if we can
Sorry.
spare the next generation of developers of DBAs from those technologies, like okay, but it isn't true that like every single restriction, like like I had a problem with hash bytes, and at the time I was like kind of a pseudo diamond platinum member, so I asked Microsoft for help, and I thought that they would resolve the scalability issue. Instead, they said, "Oh, why don't you just use CLR?" And when we did, so if the vendor itself is saying, "Hey, there are some limitations in our platform. CLR is still a good thing to use." I think the argument that CLR functions are an ancient relic of the past to be looked at by historians only doesn't really hold water, especially because I looked at SQL Server 2025 stuff today, and they talked about the freedom to use different programming languages within SQL Server. And you know what functionality used to give us the freedom to use different programming languages in SQL Server?
Take it away, Joe.
CLR.
Yep.
uh,
Um,
Go ahead, Eric.
no, I was,
Defend it, Sean. Defend it.
So, no, my thing, and this is again my opinion here
just opinion of one
i-
guy.
Yes. Opinion
is
of
that
one very handsome gentleman.
oh, thank you, just for you. Uh, if you're using CLR, you're doing it wrong. That's just my opinion because you like for your example for hash bytes, I understand the the motive behind that. I don't think putting it into CLR is correct. I think for the amount of money that you're paying for SQL licensing, that if you're going to do a very CPU heavy amount of hashing, do it on the client side. Do it on another application server. Why do you want to do it on your database server? If you look at some of the stuff that I don't know if you remember, because this is getting pretty old, because I'm pretty old, is there used to be SOAP endpoints for SQL Server,
Remember those?
right? Yeah. Again, why? That's what a web server's for. Like, this is not a. There are things to make developers' lives easier. There are things that are, there's a lot of things that can make your life easier. For example, you can take 4 grams of ibuprofen a day and feel amazing and nothing hurts. Doesn't mean whatever hurts still isn't broken and wrong. It just means you don't necessarily feel it today.
Well, it's just that's all mind over matter, Sean.
Well, it is.
Just
But
pretend it doesn't hurt.
that's right. But the CLR thing, I mean, you also have to look at the model in which it runs. There's a bunch of stuff. Could I see CLR for a couple things? Yeah, I don't agree that the geometry and spatial and stuff, data types, where it ended up being CLR. I think those should have been a native item. I think
Like
if
the
you
format
look
function too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Again, there's a lot of stuff I don't think should be at a database level. I was kind of upset when XML got thrown in there. Do you really want to do XML parsing and
How
make
else
a
do we store
DOM?
query plans, Sean? We need our query plans stored somehow. XML was the choice.
So, yeah, if you watch that, which I would encourage you to watch that. Uh, Enhance. Enhance. But I think again, all that's old is new again, right? We're basically getting SOAP endpoints again. The CLR.
What do you mean with the vector stuff, right?
I mean, kind of, yeah, right? Like you're getting all this stuff all over again. I wish there was a different process. I don't have any say into that. I don't know anything about that. I'm just saying, as a DBA and developer who would use it, there are times when it's really nice, but there's also the thing of, well, it lets me do A. I've been tasked with doing A. I'll just do it. And as Joe said, Service Broker might fit some of those. Does anyone here want to deal with Service Broker?
Not particularly. No, but like where I sympathize with the need for these things in a database is that so much of that stuff needs to end up in the database anyway. Like, sure, like what you were saying, yeah, you could use you could offload the generation of the hashes to an application server, something that is far cheaper to have 3 billion CPUs in and get it done quickly. But all those hashes need to end up in the database anyway. So then you're looking at like getting all those hashes from the application server into the database. And if you're at the point where generating all those hashes is so computationally expensive that you need them offloaded, then like getting them into the database is like that's going to be kind of ugly too. And if you need them as part of some ETL process, it's like when you're swapping all this stuff around. So I understand why all this stuff ends up is like something you can do in the database. Like I understand why why people need to do this like where the data lives, but you're also right in that the limitations that are imposed on Azure SQL Database tend to keep developers more honest about what they put in the database, right? Because obviously a lot of the stuff that like you can't do there is just like, oh, kind of like, you know what? Thank God you can't do that here. Like, whew. Like I'm actually kind of relieved you're not allowed to do that anymore. But really, let's be honest, the most bright shining beacon, the best part about Azure SQL Database is that it uses read committed snapshot isolation by default. Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen on read committed snapshot isolation by default? When is that coming to on-prem, Sean? Tell us all about it.
No clue. You can enable it.
You can
right?
enable it. Should be by default though.
Yeah, there's there's something there about the limitations actually keeping you in check. I don't necessarily agree with limitations, but I understand the need for them in certain locations. I don't think any of the offerings from any of the cloud providers are inherently bad. I just feel that people look at them and they want to see them as new and shiny, but also treat them as the old thing that they've been using forever.
Yep.
And there's a mindset, there's a dichotomy shift that needs to happen when you do that. And so many people are stuck in the old mindset, and then they bring that to the new, and it causes problems. I don't see a problem if you're in the new mindset and you're doing it with minus the no one wants to be an expert. Everyone wants to be lazy. Oh, AI, write me a query. Okay, cool. Copy, paste, next. Or like you said, ORM, generate me a query because I'm too lazy to write a where clause.
Yep.
And instead I get a 17 long union all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the general there are other words for it for the AI era, but it really is the general indemnification of people like in everything that they do. Just abstract all the hard thinking away to these other things, and you are free to just do whatever, indulge in whatever dalliances, give you a sense of whimsy at the moment. And like, there's no one, it's very hard to find people who are very deeply invested in things, to the point where, they could write a book or even like a blog post about something that shows any level of
Yeah.
like real technical understanding.
Yeah, you don't have to write a book, right? It's just understand, like you said about RCSI, like when's that, why isn't that standard? How many people could even, give a reason why that would be a pro or a con? Right?
Oh
There's
yeah.
just how many
Yeah.
people would even know about isolation levels?
Yeah. Well,
Red
as I
Balloons
found,
by Kendra Little. So something about balloons.
yeah,
Something about both.
yeah. Kendra Little, world-renowned balloon expert. Are
No.
they can tell if they are red or not? It's
Yeah.
you know,
But
And
I love that about
depending
it.
on your isolation level, well, no, wait, no, it was marbles,
It's always
right?
marbles,
It was like
black marbles and white marbles.
yes, yeah. See,
But
this is how you make the
the
big
original
bucks.
post on that was Jim Gray, actually, R.I.P. Jim Gray was the original person to write a post about that. And the funniest thing is that post was about snapshot isolation, not about read committed snapshot isolation, but it has slowly morphed into the read committed snapshot isolation has all these problems. But no, the original post was about snapshot isolation.
But that my point is like I don't expect I would expect isolation levels to be a basic thing the developer understands. Like if you're writing something for Linux or Windows, right? You're going to use an API that's publicly available. I don't expect you to understand how every little thing in the kernel works
Right.
to use that API. But I would expect if you're having to give a handle to something or you're having to give a whatever to a thing that
Give you
you
a handle.
understand what that is that you're supposedly working with, right? Like just the basic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was once told by a Microsoft support person that snapshot isolation did not apply to ComStore because ComStore doesn't store data in pages.
Hmm.
And snapshot isolation only applies to row store data
That is a
in
very
pages.
interesting take.
So
Hmm.
if
Could we have a moment of silence for that one?
um, but I actually do want to talk about Sean's well, why don't you do the hashing in the application? Because, we are people who want to be experts. And I like to think that many of our viewers want to be experts too, because, why else would you watch SQL Server content on YouTube, right? In fact, I even know some experts who won't even go that far.
That's true.
Um,
Can't consume it. Undigested.
the For our workload, and I'm not saying that it's true you should always do hashing in SQL Server. I'm sure there's some cases where it would be better to not do it in SQL Server. For our workload, there's a very big ETL process ran in the middle of the night. Um, these hashes can only be calculated like in the middle of ETL. So like just and if you want in ETL like data size, I don't know, like 10 billion rows and 10 terabytes of data. So like if I wanted to do it in the application, like even if it was like free to compute in the application, like zero CPU, zero everything, like I don't know how I would get the data back into my 10 terabytes of staging tables efficiently. If you do an update, it's single threaded and like the updates are going to be way more expensive than the hashes, or if I restore all the data again to get parallelism, again, that's more expensive. I mean, like it's not so much that like the hashes didn't cost very much with respect to the rest of the workload. Well, in theory, they didn't cost very much. The hash bytes implementation made them cost much more than they should have. Um, I think the other thing that makes it easier for us was, like we have like a 96 core server, 112 core server, whatever. This is running in the middle of the night. Like, I want that server running as hot as possible. I want to be able to like cook a steak on that server. Like that, like we're talking about like alerts for using too much memory. Like you can have CPU at like 90%, 95%. It's fine. It's 4 a.m. Like who cares? Like I'm
Give it a
not gonna
nice
be able
bath in the
to.
morning.
Yeah, like even if there was some way to get my hashing outside of SQL Server, like I don't think that would meaningfully impact the size of the server. So for my workload, for my special workload, which no one else could possibly talk about or know anything about, and none of the rules apply because it's my special important workload, or it was. I don't think hashing would work on an application server. And I mean, like, I don't know, like we can joke about using other programming languages in SQL Server. This is the direction Microsoft's going. CLR's been around for a while. I mean,
So
it,
what
it,
other
it it
what
doesn't
other
feel that unreasonable to me to, on rare occasion, if you have something that T-SQL is very bad at, or it's impossible to do in T-SQL, and like maybe it is a shortcut, and you're better off like not doing it in an ideal world, but sometimes shortcuts are the fastest way to get to your destination.
Yeah, so like what, right? So programming languages outside of T-SQL that we can use in SQL Server now. It's like the first one was sort of Python and R. I believe Java came along. What did JavaScript get added? Is that one that we can do now, or is
I
that
hope not. Man, that would be
I
wild.
don't recall.
no? Okay. Yeah, I don't have the full list because it's not something I do very
Yeah,
often.
I actually I have I think I ran Python once in SQL Server.
Yeah, it wasn't very good.
I don't know why I was doing it. Maybe I wanted to write a snarky blog post or
Well, you'd
something.
have to be that's with the ML service.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. That whole thing. That
Yeah,
big
that's a
big data
whole,
cluster.
well, RIP
Yeah.
BDC.
Yeah.
So,
But so I guess, it is somewhat heartening that Microsoft is slowly chipping away at the dumb stuff that people would need CLR for. Like 2025 is getting regex and a whole bunch of regex functions. We got string ag, we got string split. So like there is some movement in the right direction for people to not have to implement their own dumb stuff. Like there,
yeah.
there there are some things getting added that it's just like, oh, cool. Like maybe like light at the end of the tunnel stuff where it's like, oh, great. Like I don't have to do all this nonsense myself. I can do it. Like there's something built in for me to do it with. So like that is heartening. But you know, it would be nice if sort of like when you're writing T-SQL and you run into something that is like generally not a relational strength. Like a lot of the string stuff would fall into that. Some of like the broader mathematical calculations would also fall into that. But like it would be nice if there were, things you could do like in a way that was relationally friendly, but just in a different language, and that translated a little bit better. Like even if you think about just like like something as simple as like a B tree, like people have this weird expectation of indexes that once you get into an index, you can go any which way and jump around and do all this other stuff. But like what does a B tree really do? What's its strength? It gives you a good starting point, and you can go this way or you can go this way from that starting point. You can't go both ways and come back up and jump around and like you have to do like another piece of work if you want to go in a different direction or if you want a different starting point. So like people do have unreasonable expectations of like databases and certain database structures, but it would be nice if there were ways to do relationally friendly things in maybe like a language that wasn't directly SQL, I guess is my point. Like there should be a way to work with data within a database that is maybe not just SQL. Like SQL is obviously capable of a lot of stuff, but there are many things like when like you were talking about XML earlier, like some of the XML parsing queries that I've had to
Oh,
write have been absolutely insane. And like
yeah.
the things that I've had to learn about XML just to get data out of SQL Server, I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why is there not just a function that produces this view for me? Like, I shouldn't have to do this. But
Just enable like automation.
yeah, okay, fine. But like still, like if I'm trying to read from an extended event file, like, like there should be something that just like some sort of built-in function where it's like, okay, I want to read data from this file. I don't want to read XML and then parse it. I want you to just give me the contents of the file in a tabular format. You like something should be able to like look at that file, look at some metadata, maybe even look at like a format file like the like BCP and bulk stuff does and be like, oh, cool, this is what's in the file. These are the data types. These are the columns. Like, and just like give me a table format for that. Like, great. Like that should be easy, but no, we're stuck having to do all this terrible
That
work.
You can do it with PowerShell.
You can do it with PowerShell.
Well, I
one
can't,
line.
but someone
That I
can.
You
think,
can,
but that's the API, right? Like that is the API that's given to you via
yeah,
T. Could
right.
it have been implemented different? I think it could have been implemented different. Do
You
I
could put
know how to
you,
implement it better? No.
but but
But
but could someone theoretically smart put like an abstraction between me and that to make it easier? Yes.
oh, yeah, it would be nice in your example, especially for the XML, as someone who's also done stupid stuff with XML and then said, I'm done with this and walked away, is is it would have been nice if it would have come back relational, right? If it would have come back as maybe some type of temporary table that you could have just got stuff on or whatever. I
Yeah.
don't know what the implementation would look like,
Like a
but
just one of those streaming window functions or streaming table functions that like a lot of the other DMVs work from.
yeah, yeah,
That,
and
like
and that
that'd
would
be
have been
beautiful.
great. The I think a lot of the thing is you're trying. It's always round peg square hole, right? It's like, well, let's take something that is document object model that's not made to be anywhere near, it's made for a specific implementation, and hey,
Hmm.
let's go ahead and just shave those corners down and shove it through that round hole.
Well, okay, but you Microsoft are the ones who chose to store many important things in XML, system health
Well, I
extended
heard
event,
JSON's the
query
hotness.
plans. Yeah, but nothing switched over to that except for like a couple of goofy new views. But like there's just so much in SQL Server that like in order to get information from it, like it's stored in XML, so it's on you to do that. Like it always struck me as odd that you would find these blog posts with like like really detailed examples of like how to shred the XML to get this and that from it, and there wasn't just like some abstraction to be like, oh, I want to select this XML stuff. I can just do select star from this thing. It shows me all the
Right.
columns, and then I can choose which columns I want. Like to me, that seems like, hey, let's make life easier for the people who have to deal with this all day. Like, not make them also have to be XML experts. So like, I don't know. It was
Right.
always weird that that wasn't a thing. But
Now do Unicode.
we have strayed very far from the cloud.
Sorry, now do Unicode.
No, draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, no, getting back to the cloud though, like I said at the very beginning, I think there's a lot of good use cases for it. I think it's a tool like anything else. Just like Joe, it's a tool, and you can use it for good or you could use it for bad. You can use Joe's ETL strengths to get 10 terabytes of database loaded in once, or you can use Joe's evil, uh, you know, whatever. I don't know what his evil name is, Cloudy Joe instead of
Cloudy
regular
Joe.
Joe.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
Sunny Joe.
and Rowdy Joe.
All right, Sean. All right. So
Okay, well,
here's the issue. Here's the issue.
hang
All
on
right.
hey, Joe, hang on one second.
Okay.
I
Okay.
just want to do a time check here. Sean, do you still have a
Yeah.
hard stop in about 10 minutes?
I can go a couple more. Yeah.
All right, cool. So, Joe, I'm gonna give you the floor to make your statement, but then, as your unbiased moderator in this discussion, I do need to get closing statements from the
Closing
two of you,
arguments. Yep.
and then we will end this episode of Bit Obscene. I don't know how long this has been at this point, but
A bit
we'll
obscene.
yeah, it is obscenely long at this point. But I'm happy with that. It's not going to be a two-parter. So anyway, Joe, you have the floor. Bang the
Thank you.
gavel.
I'll start by saying this has nothing to do with the cloud.
Ah,
But like, I feel like there's a little bit
Yeah,
of
Charlie.
you're in trouble
people
now,
are being
Sean.
like disingenuous a little bit, maybe. Like, not Sean, of course,
Not
obviously.
Sean, of course.
He's above reproach. But like, I feel like if you ask some people like, hey, SQL Server 2020 two, I want to do a bunch of like regex stuff in SQL Server. Some people might say, oh, well, you're a dumbass. Like, why do you want to use all your CPU power doing regex and your very expensive licensing? Like, you should do it in the application. But now in 2025, where we have like built-in regex stuff, Microsoft just gives it to you. I wonder if those same people would be like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, sure, like it's important to query the data where it lives, and you can do the filtering as low as possible, and you can send less data to the client, and you don't have to do all this complicated, you don't have to split your code up, and, network latency, blah, blah, blah. So, like, I do feel, and I understand, like, like if something isn't supported in SQL Server well, it can be natural to say, well, it's like, do it somewhere else. But, it's kind of like it's a temporary inconvenience, right? Because if you go far enough in the future, I'm sure that every possible useful thing will be supported
10
in
minutes into the future.
T-SQL. Yes.
All right. There's a wonderful thing that you just said. I heard most of the words in it. It was good. They sounded fantastic altogether like that. So we're going to close out this episode of Bit Obscene. We're going to get closing cloud statements from each of you. I'm gonna flip a coin to see who goes first. Well, I would, but I don't have any coins. So
That's
uh,
just life under communism.
since I know all my coins have been confiscated, they're being melted down into pitchforks. So since we started with Joe, we're going to start with Sean for the closing statements here. So Sean, the floor is now yours until you stop talking.
Yeah. The saying I think the end all be all is it's a tool. I think it's a good tool that fits a lot of places, but it's
Hmm.
not
Really?
the multi-tool, right? If you're a multi-tool, you do a lot of things. You might do some of them okay, many of them okay, but you're not doing anything very great, right? People go to the multi-tool because they're like, well, I can go do this, I can go do this, I can get it done. It might remove it might get the screw out, but I'll strip it, or it might cut this, but it's not going to cut it really well. But it's enough to get the job done. And that's how I see it. When you start having to split your offerings so that there's all these individual specialized things, it makes me wonder, like, is this the right thing? Are people going to know enough? Coupled with people just not either caring. I don't know if it's not caring or not wanting to learn or what have you. I'd really be interested to learn more about that from individuals, but just the lack of wanting to be experts, just getting onto the thing and going. I think the cloud is a good thing. I'd arguably say I'm happy that it's here for some of the things that it's given us, but as a CIO quarterly, oh, the cloud is the hotness, put all your stuff in the cloud, let's do it. I mean, you're pretty short-sighted for that. You got to step back and say, what makes sense? How do we put the whole application lifecycle in it? How do we refactor things? Or if we're net new, what do we need to do to get the correct performance, to get the correct items? Is it a level that we're okay spending? Because as we've seen, there's been a lot of companies with blog posts about pulling all their stuff out of the cloud, going back on-prem, saving tens of millions of dollars a year. even with their costs. And it's so it's a tool. Use it well. I have nothing against it on the just in general. It's just how it's like anything else. It's how people misuse it and then don't read the fine print and complain or say, "Oh, this sucks. It doesn't." Well, yeah, you used the tire as a to cut your tomato. Of course, it didn't work well, and the tomato squished. Take 10 seconds and think about it, but I don't know if we can have that today. So overall, cloud, okay if used in the right context, like everything else. Otherwise, I'll take a part from Apple and say you're holding it wrong, and that's it.
All right. Well, as long as those 10 seconds are billable, I don't mind thinking about it. All right. Cloudy Joe, hit us with your closing statements here.
I would say that if you can't cook a steak on a server, you don't truly own it. And you should fully understand what that means before you make decisions if you want to move things in the cloud. Um, I mean, I'm sympathetic to, I don't know, you have some startup and like the thought of, whoa, we're going to get hardware and data center number one, and then we'll get hardware and data center number two, which has to be far enough away, and we'll set up an availability group and backups, and we'll define our RTOs and RPOs, and we'll, do failovers and test our HADR, and we'll like do drills and cut the links and turn servers off and make sure that we're always up when we need to be and we're not losing too much data. I mean, like that definitely, I mean, that's a pretty intimidating thing, right? Like it's not like how it used to be in the good old days where you just had a server and like under someone's desk and
The server and a
that's
prayer.
that yeah that served as a production. Yeah, and like I can understand why you wouldn't want to take all that on, why you wouldn't want to hire someone to do that. I mean, what if you hire the wrong person? Well, like what if you hire a shady data center? Because
Plenty of
I
those.
mean, you don't even know like what the data center is doing. Like they might even be in the cloud for all you know. So in your effort to avoid the cloud, you might just be taking even like another step away from what you control. And like we already said, if you're starting with a new application, it's just easier from the beginning to say, okay, we're not going to use CLR because we don't believe in freedom. And we're not going to use Service Broker. We're not going to use agent jobs. And we're not going to do cross database queries. And we're going to be used, we're going to live with our 10 milliseconds of idle latency, which might spike up to like 30 seconds on occasion. It'll be fine. Um, it'll work great for us. Um, like I think there's something to be said there. I do think it's also probably not easy to make the right decision if you are shifting to the cloud. It does seem like Microsoft's documentation does get better over time, but like as someone who's personally tried to look into this stuff for recently, there are a lot of dead links still. There are a lot of dead links, and some of the dead links sound really useful too. And but then you click on them, and it redirects and it redirects, and then you get a 404. Like it is surprising. I found it surprisingly difficult to find like good cloud content in terms of like like hey like we did a migration, we learned XYZ, or like here's a really clean breakdown of what to choose when, like if you want to choose Azure VMs or managed instances or Azure SQL DB or even some non-Azure, you want to go on Amazon or Google or I think Oracle has a cloud. Maybe we shouldn't
Hmm.
shouldn't talk about that.
Yeah,
Um,
no one goes to Google, let's be
yeah.
honest.
All right. Yeah. Well, like I don't know if it's all uh AI slop now, or people hold their cards too close to their chest, or all the knowledge is locked behind paywalls and consultants and fancy training. But like I found it pretty hard to get answers, even to what I would think would be some basic questions like which platforms support CLR. Like as someone who develops that, I want that in like loud, like red blinking letters, like, hey, if you're going to use Azure SQL Database, no CLR for you. Like that is something which, like it's a decision Microsoft made 9 years ago. They should fully own it. So, then like that'll increase our chances of perhaps stumbling into making a good decision. So to wrap all that up, a lot of people use it. I'm sure it's good for some people. I think if you're starting new, it's definitely easier. And if you're doing a lift and shift, hopefully you're better at Googling than I am, or you hire the right consultant and you can maybe get to a good enough answer.
All right. Wonderful,
What are
wonderfully
your
said, Joe.
What are your closing thoughts, Eric,
My
as the
closing
unbiased
thoughts.
moderator?
My closing thoughts are thank you both for joining us on this, joining my temporary co-host and my potential temporary replacement co-host for joining us at here at Darling Data headquarters on this episode of Bit Obscene, brought to you by Darling Data and the good folks at Beer Gut Magazine. And as always, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I hope you learned something, and maybe one or more of my temporary co-hosts will see you in the next episode of the Bit Obscene podcast. All right. Thank you very much.